definitely going to be thrown out. The Trundle is a bit, for me at least, is always a bit of a question mark. Kind of depends on the matchup, but it makes sense to throw it out just to make sure you're going to be fine, because it can be very hard to play into. Let's see what they are rounding this out with. Any expectations for first picks?
We've got currently setting up for a Xin Zhao first pick with the Trundle ban taken off the table. So that could happen with Gwen banned. Rumble priority does increase. I think that Zika's Rumble in particular actually is very highly sought after. So getting Zika on a comfortable pick, again, we talked about this in the pre-show, that for LNG, getting him on a positive champion that he can make real waves on is going to be that defining factor. Looking at our junglers, we've got Xin Zhao and Wukong still available. Very likely to see a trade for those. But with LGD seeing their top matchup, they might look for something to answer in the top lane. And with the Yone locked in super early, your Sejuani priority starts to increase, and Climber maybe is a bit of a playmaker for LGD, could look to take that Sedge and help out either Sasi or XQW in their solo lanes, whoever it is that takes this Yone.
Yeah, definitely. That's still a little bit of a question mark, but they should be, you know, finding a good way to deal with that in the draft. Pantheon, very interesting, because Pantheon got a little nerfed, so he's not as strong when it comes to damage that he does to junglers, or like to jungle monsters, right? Because they were kind of trying to push him towards top lane a little bit more, but that just hasn't worked in pro play. You know, pro players are just like, yeah, you know what, whatever. we're not doing that.
Unless it's Bwipo or somebody, we are not seeing a Pantheon get pulled out in competitive. And maybe somewhere in the LPL we'll find the Rogue Pantheon top lane reaching out. But for LGD, already a very stable 2 versus 2, where they see one target, they'll be able to pick them off. And honestly, as we move into the late stages of the game as well, very good team fighting in particular. That Fate Sealed, the Twisted Advance from Climber, able to lock up one target really easily, set up for that Yone. Will be quite easily set up for, and I think that LNG have kind of doubled down on this pick style of composition. The Pantheon, the Silas, very good single target damage, very good skirmish capabilities, but as we move into these broad scale 5 versus 5s, LNG are going to become more reliant on Fishwan, on Zika, and what they can pull out for the team.
Absolutely. It's also going to be interesting, in my opinion, what they want to go for on the side of LGD here for the bot lane, because with the Silas being your enemy, you really got to think about what are we giving over possibly. You know, we usually see Alistar picked an immediate Silas answer because that's one of the key ultimates you want to steal. So that's definitely something you won't want to pick here at all.
Yeah.
So let's see if they can adapt to that, with the Yunara, of course, being banned. Very interesting pick. Still a lot of question marks. Have seen her pop off, have seen her absolutely do nothing at all. So not mad we're not seeing her right now.
We got the first Yunara pentakill just yesterday in the LPL, so this champion has gone pretty nuclear over here and has had some pop-up performances, but equally, you know, we know that globally this champion has potentially struggled elsewise also. With Poppy taken off the board, though, you're looking at things like potentially engaged supports coming down. I think that for LGD, they probably don't want to take the Rel immediately here because they can't take the Alistar, as you highlighted, because that means then that Haichao is going to have a really good ulti to steal. So they don't want to take the Rel because then that just gives LNG the ability to take Alistar, but they might just say that they are not particularly worried either way, take the Rel in the bot side and try for a better winning matchup a little bit later on. Equally, we've still got Lucian available, we've still got so many ADs up and available that teams might want to look for, and I think that for LGD, it's about trying to find something that synergizes with this very aggressive diving forward composition. So I think that the Jhin that they hovered might be a good idea. You might even be able to go for an AP mage for Savior, so a Ziggs down on that bot side wouldn't be the worst placed option in the world. But Jhin, Ziggs, you know, your diving partners or your friends that can help from afar more than anything are going to be quite useful for LGD.
Yeah, definitely. On the other hand side, we're looking to get some hard engage on the board, maybe, but Kai'Sa is the first one that's going to be locked in. And now question stands, what are they picking for support? They did hover the Nautilus, which I think is not the worst choice, but it is going to possibly be the Alistar for themselves, which I think is great, because you're not only saving Silas, but also the Alistar. You're taking away the chance of it being picked by someone else randomly. I do like this, I'm not mad at this at all. I still wonder what LGD want to go for as an AD carry though.
Yeah, something that can play a little bit more safe, something more reserved, you would think, or you know, to keep out of the dive more than anything. Even Xayah has really good value in this game if they want to take it. As I'm seeing that my camera's died, I'll try and work on that. 1 second. Hello! Yeah, so the Xayah does get locked in. No surprises, honestly, with the amount of dive that LNG have picked up. Just taking something that can peel for itself when you've got a roster of 4 divers as well. You know that your team are abandoning you. Like, that's just the case for Savior here. He's going to get, if they start as a 5-man unit, all 4 champions are diving away, and Savior's sat there, no dashes. He's just going to have to deal with it. And then you've got Pantheon jumping on top of you, Sylas, Alistar combos, Kai'Sa into the backline. I think the Xayah here is a really solid pick and gives Savior the best opportunities in this game to succeed.
Yeah, 100%. You do have the Featherstorm as that kind of tool that you need. I usually prefer AD carries that can play a bit more proactively. I think with Xayah, it's always this 50-50 flip of do I keep my ultimate and possibly lose half of my health, or do I ult and then not have it for teamfight scenarios coming up. So that's, in my opinion, always a very hard position to be in. But just looking at the drafts, do you have one that you favor hardly, or is it more even than you expected, just draft-wise?
I actually really like both of these teams' compositions. I think that LNG have got a very concise dive style. They are going to find one target. They're going to look to pick that target very easily and then try and play the fights with resets afterwards once those cooldowns have come back up and available. I think that LGD have got themselves something a little bit more of a 5v5 composition where they can look to play these team fights a little more, maybe where they can look to play a longer team fight situation that bit better. But both of these sides have got identities to their compositions, and it's all about who it is that executes on them better.
I gotta say, I'm personally leaning a little more towards the LNG draft. I think for me, it's really this dive, this backline dive that they have, where I feel like if you end up catching the Xayah, oof, that's going to be so spicy for you to play with. Like, that is what I expect to see, or that's what I would want to see from this comp. On the other hand, you do have XQW on a pick that can do a similar type of thing, right? Yone's always very, very good for that backline dive as well, as we can see. Some interesting interactions happening here.
Yeah, YCX there, just giving the wall a good ferromancy, making sure that there's nobody lurking, no Evelyns in the brushes, as Fish1 protecting in the tri-brush here, and looking at, again, getting that early vision down. You can see defensive ward placed by Climber on his Raptors, most likely going to be matched by Xiaofang as well. And interestingly, early ward placed by XQW also, to just see if he gets played in the early stages, if there's going to be a rogue Pantheon gank at level 2, hit that Raptors, hit the red buff, go straight into mid lane. It does suggest that these two mid laners are going to go quite scrappy in the early stages, right? We've got Yone versus Sylas. This isn't a typical game 1 mid lane matchup that we've become used to seeing. This is going to be a very sort of intense 1 versus 1 that they can play, and expect to see those two relatively low HP bars, asking for jungle intervention. You know, flash W from both of these junglers is set up enough, and that could be just what you need.
Absolutely. No crazy early shenanigans though, both junglers in their respective bot side jungles, so they are looking to maybe move towards the top side. I'm actually very excited to see Zika play. We've talked about it. He is possibly the most important player, maybe the most interesting member of this LNG lineup, and I think Rumble puts him in a good position where he can do some work himself. You know, he's not on tank duty. He can actually go and carry a team fight if he has to. So let's see if that ends up happening as the feather pullback puts Uwe in his place here a little bit, but they should be fine. Push though on the side of LGD. I think that was to be expected, especially when we talk about Alistar not being a champion for the first few levels in the game. More of a minion, maybe.
Notoriously, Alistar the weakest level 1 support that you can find, and especially in this AD carry matchup as well. Back in Season 8, so 7 years ago at this point, but Xayah was the go-to answer for Kai'Sa, just because it's really difficult for the Kai'Sa to navigate the laning phase with all of the feathers. It's quite tricky for her to position safely without getting rooted up and then comboed, but a good early little laning phase for OVO as well. A reminder, this is his first game competitively in the LPL, so getting to be paired alongside his AD carry that he played with in the LDL is going to be really nice for him. And a quick litmus test as well. Didn't fail his first Alistair combo on the big stage. Always a bonus. Looking at how comfortable you can be on those picks. He's got a lot of pressure in this game as well. He's going to be their leading source of engage and trying to find those multiple member knockups and maybe even just peeling for some high profile carries as we look up to the top side here. Climber already looking at Zika underneath this turret, and Maokai, remember, can drop aggro of these turrets very easily.
Yeah, but they're being a bit more careful with a new wave coming in. I think it would still be very early to go for a dive here, so we can see Climber deciding to go for the reset rather than actually going for a dive. I think Climber profits from the ultimate, but here we can see action coming through. It's pulling back, has to flash out, but still in a sticky position here. They can still move a little further forward, but again here as well, only level 4 available. Gotta be careful. Don't overforce it.
From XQW here, you know, waits out the timer on Haichao's abscond abduct, and honestly Haichao staying here, he's a little bit risky because he's very low on mana, will have enough to probably Kingslayer and then E back out to safety, but if XQW just gets a little bit of vision and a little bit of support from Climber, he can make this mid lane really punishing, really difficult actually. For the AD carry. OVO here actually doing a really good job at holding the wave. It means his AD carry misses 1 melee creeps experience and now gets to be back in the laning phase, really just unchecked, as YCX and Save you're going to need to try and find a different recall timer. Really good job from OVO just as a small mechanical bot lane thing to make sure that his AD carry doesn't miss out on too much, and that now Savior and YCX are in a little bit of trouble as well because this bot wave might get frozen on them, means that they're going to have to overextend in the lane and can't really ever find a recall either.
You can see Savior deciding to go for it. Possibly, no, never mind, he's not. I love how they bait you sometimes, you know, they're like, maybe I'm going for a backport.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not going for a backport. They're deciding to stay, but they are on a little bit of a ward there, as you can see. A public execution being used. First ultimate thrown out here. Doesn't really do too much.
Zika's almost 6 as well.
Yeah. But we can see maybe a bit of a turn here. OVO not really getting the chance to move forward. Rel with the mobility, just able to make it out in time.
Yeah, and you can see OVO still hasn't based, right? This is the first recall, but neither have Savior and YCX. They're desperate to try and find a recall because they're currently playing with item disadvantage, and even though the HP looks good, Savior's not really got any mana to try and push this advantage, and Fish1, you know, has got a lot of attack speed. Don't think that it's really putting too much of an advantage in the isolated 2 versus 2, but he's just constantly going to be able to try and hold the wave or control what happens to it. And now finally with this recall coming through for Savior, he's going to have a bunch of gold. Probably picks up, you know, depending on the build that he goes for, either Essence Reaver or the Yuntal, but could get a BF Sword if he wanted it, would be in a much better spot in this laning phase, and does exactly that. So suggests that you're going towards that Yuntal Wild Arrows, means that you're going to have a very, very solid outcome in this laning phase, especially when the Kai'Sa now sat really weak in the 1 versus 1 in terms of AD carries, and with just attack speed as well, that value really high.
Leo finds Climber in the jungle here, and we can see everyone moving in a little bit, even flashing out. But nothing too much happening. Damage output is not quite there yet, but here comes the ultimate. XQW has been, in a position where he can survive that underneath the turret. It's going to be very interesting to see who's utilizing the ultimates better in this scenario, because essentially both of them have the same one.
Yeah, Xiaofang though, he's on vision here, and Climber is being routed here.
He's definitely going to get caught out a little bit as OVO is moving in as well, but YCX is, of course, in the area to make sure that Climber stays safe. Doesn't lose too much either, so that should be okay for the time being.
Yeah, and Haichao has sustained that early laning phase, and you know, now the power of Kingslayer is really coming home to roost, as XQW with no TP really doesn't want to have to go back to base. Just kind of trying and fishing for these little bits of experience, and even trying to find a couple of creeps as well, using the shield from that W to try to farm up and last hit, and now even YCX coming into the mid lane just to help push out the wave, just to act like he's doing something, as Haichao doesn't really care.
OVO is here as well, did use the spellbook TP, so it is a 2v2 now. Both of those mid laners have lost a decent bit of their health, but you know, with both supports roaming upwards, they should be fine. But it's of course also a preparation to go for the void grabs here. We don't see the lane swap, we just see both supports roaming towards that mid lane, giving a little bit more of a reassurance. And so far it looks as if LNG are in the better position to go for these grubs. No big interest from the side of LGD to contest it even. So maybe they will move more towards bot side again and try to go for the first Drake, because Dragon stacking can be a valid option as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is you know, a small thing for LNG, but it's coming off of the laning prowess from Haichao. Because he's able to push XQW out of the lane, it then means, okay, OVO can spellbook TP in, it forces YCX to show his hand a little bit earlier, but actually, they're not able to push that wave all the way out, get XQW a good recall, and Haichao is able to stay in the lane, push his wave out, and be present at the Void Grubs if needed. Also, the fact that Fish1 moved up from that bot lane into the mid lane, he sacrificed a little bit of his time down in that bot side to make sure that he was in range for a killer instinct if a fight were to break out. And LNG just committing A with their bot lane and B with a slightly better advantage from the mid lane means that they're very easily able to get those Void Grubs, and without any recompense as well. Importantly, look at what LGD got on the bot side. There was pretty much nothing, a little bit of time for their AD carry, but outside of that, they didn't get the dragon. That's still up and available, and with recalls coming through for Zika now, he might look to try and teleport either back to that top side or with a full wave crash under the turret can walk out to top lane and then be a part of the fight down bot side. Does elect to teleport in, but he's in a really strong spot, so he can probably bully out Sasi as well, push out that wave, come down to this dragon, as we can see both teams now posturing at least around the bot side of the rift.
Well, let's see, none of these top laners have their TPs ready, so it's going to be a 4v4 situation, at least for the time being, if that's what they want to go for. Haichao steals the Nature's Grasp. They are looking to find something here. Rel is going to be the target. Nature's Grasp coming out, but the flash will bring them to safety. Oh, we do get a hit onto Climber, so he's getting beaten with his own weapons. Has to use the Nature's Grasp in a defensive way here. But in the end, that should be enough for the moment to put LNG in a better position to go for the Drake if that's what they want to do. But LGD immediately moving back to the lanes, trying to push out these waves, and therefore forcing LNG to find an answer to that.
I will say that LNG have got a really good pick composition, but LGD have got Savior, who's really strong right now.
Ooh, TPs are coming through. Feather pullback finds the root. OVO should be going down here. Finds another headbutt. Can he manage to get out somehow? Nope, but it's only the support kill. So maybe that's the good news for LNG here.
Yeah, YCX doesn't need to take that, but you know, finds first blood. Doesn't really matter in the long run. This is going to secure Dragon for LGD. And what you got to see there is a potential preview of what's going to happen later on in this game, where a lot of those ultis get expended, or a lot of the pick tools get used as Sasi.
Yeah, does not quite hit the public execution here. Zika, of course,
one minion.
Equalizer to clean the wave, but that should be enough with the flamethrower. Going for the kill, Zika gets it. And LNG are kind of putting themselves in a decent position here, especially when you understand that Rumble with Void Grubs, when he actually gets to hit the turrets, is an absolute menace. We cannot forget about that.
Yeah, the overheat and the extra attack speed that comes from that is very powerful. XQW able to find a couple of plates down on this bot side for themselves, though, so it's not a trade from nothing. A lot of gold going into the Yone, who, you know, in fairness, had previously been struggling in this mid lane matchup. Is going to get another wave uncontested, be able to recall, find a very good timing to get back to base, as well as what looks to be a third plating down on that bot side. There's nobody here to help YCX, and Haichao is posturing like he knows that, so doesn't really mind all that much. And I think that, again, to highlight what these two compositions are looking to do, LNG happy that they can look for skirmishes, for picks, for very small trades, quick in and outs, whereas LGD want to take fights on the timers where those ultimates aren't available, where Silas isn't able to pick somebody off, where the Pantheon can't find an isolated target. In those situations, LGD are going to be in a much better position, and LNG are just looking for those small picks. We saw that they found one on the top side, and we saw that when they failed to find one down on the bot side, LGD could punish.
So far, it's still relatively close. We've seen the trade and objectives, so one Drake for LGD, the 3 Void Grabs for LNG, both of the teams having a kill. And both of them doing a decent job to get something on the side lanes here, but we can see there is a bit of an issue here with Xiaofang just being a little far forward, but you should still be able to pick up the grub. the grump rather.
And it's really important as well. This is the stage of the game where our AD carries have been put to mid lane, about who can actually find priority in this mid lane. And right now it's Fish1. Despite the fact that he's down in gold, his build path has been much more efficient in terms of getting to that first item. You can see that he's rushed straight for the Kraken Slayer and has magical footwear, where Savior opted in to not go for the free boots, or has effectively picked up those tier 2 turret boots already, so setting himself back. You know, a lot of gold early on. If he'd have spent all that money on a Yuntal, he'd have that first item finish, could maybe contest for priority. And the Kai'Sa can move out of mid lane much easier as well. Using that killer instinct is much easier and means you get to those fights much faster than Savior ever would like to.
100%. With Zika going just wide here. You gotta respect it. We do have the Herald spawning in a few seconds, so I wonder if they're going to go for a little bit of a fight there. I know everyone in chat was a bit disappointed that there was no Clown Fiesta fight for the Void Wraps. Maybe we'll get it now. You know, maybe, possibly it could happen.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
far,
looking across the board, we've got first items pretty much completed. It is literally at this stage just Savior and the supports who don't have that first item picked up. But for Savior, it's really tricky for him to find that recall timing. Without having priority in the mid lane, he can't really ever push a wave and then recall, which is how you lose nothing essentially. And with the Kai'Sa just sat there permanently pressuring, it means that Savior is either going to need a little bit of help, or he's going to have to take a suboptimal recall timing and not really have the opportunity or the tools with which to fight around this Herald.
I do like though that they decided to get Zika to move into XQW, because we can see both of them have done amazing jobs on the side lanes. You know, if we look at this top lane tier 1 turret and then of course at the bot lane tier 1 turret on the other side, which XQW should be able to pick up here with the first turret there for going down for LGD. That was a good rotation for them, but LNG
Herald start
are in a good position. It's almost gone. They need to find something now with the Nature's Grasps
OVO
pushing against each other, but they are going in. Zika's trying to find something. OVO putting the headbutt onto YCX. He's now going on with the Magnet Storm from the side. We can get the own ultimate public execution also flying. They are looking to fight the fight. Sasi picks up 1 kill, but they're going forward with the killer instinct, and that's the double
coming
through. Now underneath the turret, they don't want to stop just yet. But most tools have been used. No flash, no ghost on Fish1 anymore, and therefore it's very hard for them to move forward. But they end up getting the feat of warfare. They end up getting the Herald, and now they will be able to open up this mid lane, which is extremely important to move further forward in this game.
Yeah, and despite the fact that honestly this team fight looks a little bit sloppy and a little bit mismanaged by LNG, they're the ones that come out on top. Looking at this replay to begin with, they're in between two mines. OVO tanks the Nature's Grasp, triple knockup, but his team are taking that Herald. Fortunately, he's Alistair, he's got Unbreakable Will, he can tank for a long time. But then this Equalizer just zones off Savior, and then yet again, with the Fate Seal getting flashed and a double knockup coming through from OVO, he's able to protect the team. And Xiaofang, Zika on this entire team fight are able to free fire. Fish1 flashes the Fate Seal, so he's able to get over the wall and free fire as well. And I think this is really well played mechanically for LNG, even if their ideas about going into it weren't fully fleshed out.
100%, and I think it's very, very good for them to put themselves in a decent position for this early game. Top lane turret, we mentioned it should be falling as well, sooner rather than later. But with this mid lane being opened up, it puts them in a great position to go towards this Drake as well. But we can see LGD, they are willing to contest this. And we have XQW on the side. If he finds another beautiful ultimate, maybe there's something that LG can do. But the TPs are coming through and they don't want to give this one away. Xiaofang is able to pick it up. So that's the second Drake going over to the side of LNG. And I think those small wins actually matter a lot here. Not only for the momentum of the game, but also probably mentally coming in as a little bit of an underdog in the series.
Yeah, absolutely. LNG, taking that second dragon coming into the series, as you highlighted. As a team 0-5, we don't expect them to put up too much of a fight, and then if they can find their first series win, absolutely would be thrilled by that. But up against an LGD roster who have found themselves relatively consistently. Yes, the last time these two teams played it, went to 3 games. We did go the distance, but expectation is that LGD will be able to find this win. And, you know, in the series, the expectation was that they'd be coming out on top. But for the time being, LNG have done a very good job. And yes, we've seen a little bit of the odd mistake here and there, but they are coming out on top in these fights, and LGD haven't quite got to that stage where they are able to take their big 5v5s. That's what their composition wants, as YCX here to protect XQW on the top side. Whether he's enough protection isolated, we find out is yes, and with Climber just lurking off in the wings as well. The protected play on the top side by LGD is well executed, and looking to defend this top tier 1 is a good idea for them. Give XQW that little bit of a bastion to farm under. But you can see that with that bot tier 1 going down, there's always having to be somebody from LGD responding and making sure that they are in the correct side of the map so that they're not just constantly chain losing waves.
It is a little bit of a second to breathe. Atakan will be spawning, but I don't think that's the objective you want to hit right as it spawns. It's usually a really bad idea, so I don't expect either team to actually go for that, right? I don't think that's the goal here. But yeah, I think side lane threat is going to be very important. Also, nice to mention, Savior, of course, has the Junta completed now, so there is a chance the next team fight can go a little bit easier. For the last one there, he didn't even have his first item completed, so not much you can expect him to do, especially on a pick like the Xayah that is just not quite as proactive in these early scenarios.
And he's farming really well here, Savior, right? Like 208 CS and he's just dinged into that 20-minute marker, going to be able to find himself a very real advantage in terms of those CS numbers. Will once again draw your attention to those items and the disparity, as I do think that Savior is now about to go back to base and finish up the Navori Flicker Blade, so we're 2 for 2 versus the AD carries. But with that Atakan spawning, you know, we're maybe thinking that there's a potential play on that top side, and even if you can just find a pick onto the jungler, find a little bit of an advantage in vision, try to set up for that pick, LGD might look to try to take this fight again. The Xayah is a massive counter to everything that LNG have looked to put down, as XQW and Haichao now in fighting. Oh,
well, that was not that big of a fight. That was just a solo kill right there, if you want it that way. OVO is exhausted, has the flash of the wall, but should be fine. But that is, of course, an angle where LGD can say, let's start this Atakan, let's see if we can get it. Maybe they can turn around for the fight, because it is an absolute numbers advantage here for them. They're using the Nature's Grasp as a little bit of a zoning tool here. They end up getting the Atakan. Both the Magnet Storm and the Public Execution are not quite hitting when they were supposed to, but I think it's cold. It's a little bit fine. No, Zika should be okay. TP coming through now as well. OVO again caught out here a little bit. Has to find some time. Has to use the ultimate again with the Equalizer coming through as well. We can hear the barriers being used. Sasi has to flash into the pit. OVO still alive somehow, but we can see the ultimates going through into the backline, and now it is LGD who are able to clean up the fight. Climber getting those kills on the board for them. And here suddenly it turns around, and we are back in a position where we possibly have to worry about LNG.
Yeah, Miller, I'm a little bit confused. LGD saw their mid laner die, or saw the enemy mid laner die, and just thought, well, we can take any fight that we want. We start off with the replay of the 1 versus 1. XQW comes into this with a level advantage, and it's just a difference of hitting the skill shots, right? E goes wide by Haichao, and he can't really take that fight. But this skirmish that they're taking here, LNG, is down numbers. Savior's exhausted, knocked up, and stunned and rooted back. Like, everything happens to the Xayah that shouldn't. But they're able to win this fight regardless, and we get to see really why the Xayah can be so prolific in these team fights, why it's such a good pick. Because it's able to, yes, get punted into the face of 3 enemies, but able to survive nonetheless. Now LGD, I think, with this really good advantage, they've staved off the aggression timer that LNG are going to have with this pick composition. And now if they just group up and look for pretty much any fight, they're going to be absolutely fine. And I will say as well, with XQW being as far ahead as he is as well in that side lane, he can look to take fights up against Zika, look to take fights up against Haichao. And we can see in the picture-in-picture as well that he's taking fights up against OVO.
Yeah, and he can just do it. Look at him, he's half-knifed. He didn't even do too much. It's crazy. Honestly, that entire team fight scenario put them to a 2k gold lead. Just like that. Crazy. Actually crazy. Haichao now looking to at least pick up this turret here as a little bit of a cross-map play, but yeah, it's more of a consolation prize considering that you just lost a huge fight and of course had to give up the Drake too. And yeah, I guess LNG, they gotta take a big breath, right? They gotta sit there and be like, okay, that was a bad idea. Let's take a breath, reevaluate, regroup, and then maybe the next team fight they can play a little better again, because I don't think you should fight 4v5. It's just not a good idea.
Yeah, I think the thing to remember for LNG is that if they can find a pick, their composition still functions in the same way. Where if XQW, Sasi are caught out, they've got a lot of CC, they've got a lot of lockdown to take down one target. So those side lane plays, whilst we've been advocating for XQW to make plays on sides, he needs to always know where members of LNG are, as Climbers spotted Xiaofang.
Ooh, beautiful public execution being used as the engage tool here. That should be an easy kill. Climber with the next one, 3-1-2 now on the Maokai. And I think that was the first ultimate I saw Sasi that actually, you know, hit, like, well, for a while.
Well, he forced Xiaofang's flash with the last one, and this time he lines it up and says, you can't flash this one. And,
fair, okay. They just got coming through, of course. But it's being blocked, nothing much. That will be done with that. And we can see Zika just picked up a turret in the side lane. So I think that's still one of the best things for LNG to play around, right? The side lane pressure, they have the 3 void grabs, they have the rumble. There can be something to work with. And I think it's probably one of their best calls for the moment to actually just keep that push alive.
Yeah, the one team fight that we saw won out on for LNG was when Zika was a little bit unchecked, had a really good time of things in that team fight without feeling too much pressure. Now Haichao, the focus.
Well, he has to go golden. Rest of the team able to maybe come in as XQW is still coming through. Equalizer being used, Haichao has to be careful. OVO is trying to buy some time, but they are actually trying to get some kills. Yes, XQW ends up getting the pick here, but the kill is going over to the enemy jungler, and now they're at the numbers advantage. Now LNG can try to turn it around. Feather pullback coming through, buys some space, but now with the tempo here coming out as well, as the Feather Storm is trying to stay alive, manages to do just that, but Sasi now the next target. He will be burned. In the end, it's Xiaofang with the kill. And that is a good comeback fight here for LNG.
Yeah, and look at the timer, Miller, here. This is 4 for 1 in the fight, and LNG can turn straight toward the Baron. They've got no jungler to try and smite fight contest. This Savior has got no ulti, so OVO just looks to try and knock up the Xayah. Should just fall.
Saviour's trying to get something back. YCX over the wall now. Finds the engage, will be able to pick up OVO himself. Now they still have to be careful with Zika. And Xiaofang, of course, being in the area. TP coming through to the mid lane as well. But that's great for LNG. If we look at the gold, it's swung around once more. And now LNG are in the lead. It's a tiny little lead, but it's enough for the moment to put them in a better position again, to push forward on the map.
And I want to highlight here how scrappy this team fight is. It's never 5 versus 5. Haichao in stasis waits out a lot of the timer from XQW, so that when he goes back to his soul, it means that Climber is a little bit isolated in that 1 versus 1. Haichao does a really good job at buying time, despite the fact he's the one who ends up being caught to start this all off. On the top side of this fight, what we don't really even see is the Rel getting caught and not being able to contribute to this fight at all. By the time LGD converge, it's a 2 versus 4, and Sasi's left to the Wolves. Savior, I think with a little bit of a mistake after the back of this, where he tries to contest around the Baron, ends up losing his flash in a 2 versus 4. If he'd had his flash, you know, this Drake fight might be a lot easier for him. So now going to have to try and play this team fight on the edge without having that summoner spell available is going to be very tricky.
Also, decision making, of course, a little bit of a question here for LNG. They do still have the Baron, but it would be the sole point, so they do want to contest this. Equalizer coming through. They have to use the Feather Storm immediately, as well as the Nature's Grasp. OVO trying to buy some time. Here comes the Pantheon. Public execution not quite hitting where it's supposed to, but they managed to get some damage in the backline. It's XQW once more, but the question still stands. Can LNG trade something back? The damage on the side of LGD is just too strong, but Zika! There he goes! He's going in! Zika flashing forward, playing it aggressively, but in the end it's a triple kill for the Pantheon.
It's a triple LNG, for Xiaofang.
I mean, this is looking good!
I mean, Sasa dies under this turret here. Xiaofang has enough HP to try and tank this up, unless he takes the 1v1 with Zika.
He is taking it. He will end up picking up the kill, but only to die himself. That's the ace. But now turn towards the Drake. Go for the Drake. Please.
With the Baron as well, they can take this turret. Looking at the death timers, they've still got plenty of time to take both, get as much as they can from this position, push that lead as far as possible. It looks like Xiaofang, they're looking to recall. They've got Baron recalls to get back out onto the map, and looking at those death timers, they're not going to expect LGD to contest with Sasi being dead for 25 seconds. And this looks good to start off with for LNG, but remember, we thought that LGD had this teamfight composition, and this looks incredible. As we see, you know, great absorb of the engage by Savior. He pulls the feathers through on the same timer as XQW finds a double knock-up with his ulti. All of the things start off well, but once again, it's Zika left unchecked. He's overheated, wailing away on autos, and again, flash forward with Flame Splitter available and overheated, goes golden, so there's no response. The combos and the mechanics from LNG just proving to be that little bit better, and that the gas in the tank for LGD wasn't quite there. We're going to get to do it all again though, Miller. We've got the Drake live, ultis are back up and available, and we're going to get take 3.
I mean, we do get a Drake taken here for the side of LGD, so that's the sole point, but we are now going into the backline, and there are the ultimates that are hitting this time around, but maybe LNG are trading something back. We can see the damage coming through from Fish One as well. Looking good. Can go further forward. They are on the hunt again. The flamethrower out. Feathers are being thrown as well. Pullback not quite available, so therefore they need to be careful. But the root's coming through a little late. Haichao has to go golden. Has stepped a little far forward. Now has to move out of the way as Zika is trying to deal some more damage. OVO in the area as well. Zika now has to go golden. OVO with the headbutt trying to buy some space, buying some time. But everyone is dropping extremely low. Jesus, these fights are sending me into a mental breakdown, honestly.
It's so close on both sides. It's coming down to these small skill shots, and the smite advantages, or the smallest advantages I should say, is, you know, one harpoon catches Savior and it changes the course of a team fight. If it goes wide, Savior feels safe to step up. Same to be said on the flip side here, where Fish One is looking for these engages and actually looking to try and find flanks into the fights, using that killer instinct. But YCX here thinks that he's throwing himself away as he just baits Zika out, catches actually a double knock-up, and again, credit to Fish One for being able to actually get himself out to safety. As soon as Sasi goes in, he's ending up pretty much dead in an instant. And then the attempted re-engage for LNG doesn't quite yield as much fruit as they would have liked. Haichao goes a little bit deep and does end up having to burn his stasis, and means that the rest of LNG end up having to come in to save him. And at this stage, Miller, even though we've got a 3k gold lead for LNG, doesn't feel like either of these teams are in a convincing position. We've got 3 items across the board for all of the carries, and when we look at how these fights are going to play, kind of as theorized, it's coming down to who's playing them better.
That was a ballsy TP coming in, but immediately the answer coming through as well with the Pantheon ultimate.
Haichao
in the midst of everyone again, he picks up a kill against Zaya. That's the main damage dealer gone, but the question still stands as the ultimate comes through, having to use it defensively here, XQW. But the turret is very, very low, and LNG, I think they've forced them far behind, or like further enough to actually go for the turret here.
They're far enough back that they can just take that turret. Baron spawns in 7 seconds, and with Savior not live for another 20, is that going to be enough? It's a 4 versus 4. Importantly, a really good deep ward. Spots that they haven't gone to the Baron yet, so LGD, they're not going to get baited in by this bush bait. Another great fight, though, by Haichao. He's been a bit inconsistent in this game, been the reason that some fights have happened in that top lane in particular, getting caught out once or twice. But in these fights, if he's able to trade his life for Savior's, that is a fight that Haichao should take every single time. The consistent DPS is coming from the Xayah, and Savior, the real tool to be a problem for the LNG composition. If you can take that down, that's something to do every single fight.
I think we can see, you know, the game plan that LNG drafted for themselves actually working out very well with that. You know, it was that backline dive that they wanted to go in with, picking out the enemy carries. I gotta say though, XQW is doing a great job at, you know, mimicking that for the side of LGD. were now the first ones to start this Baron. And LNG, they have to look. Maybe they can find a way in, but they don't really have any vision. It's pretty dark.
I mean, if LGD just take this for nothing, that's...
Wow. That is... I have questions.
That's absolutely criminal.
Why? What am I witnessing? Guys,
that is
what's
daylight
going on?
robbery. Yeah, and then, I mean, they know they've dropped the ball here, LNG.
Stupid. I'm sorry, but it looks so stupid. They are ulting in, Void Seeker into the bush, no one's there. Well, yeah, because you were on a bad timer, my friends. You messed that one up. And now they have Baron for the next Drake fight, which would be the soul for LGD.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, all of the good faith that LNG had earned in this game, all of the momentum, just kind of goes by the wayside. And again, to reiterate, LGD love going for 5 versus 5 broad scale team fights, but Haichao's found a flank angle here. I will highlight as well, there's a GA for Fish one, so they're gonna have to take down the Kai'Sa not once but twice. Both side lanes looking for flank angles. Sasa on one side getting marked by Zika, Haichao on the other. Let's see if we can find a way into this skirmish.
Now they're looking for it. Zika's still waiting. Has still got the vision on Sasi. Now Haichao over the wall. Maybe he can find something. Zika's being zoned up very well here by XQW. That's an important tool that will be gone. Yeah. Zika has to go golden. And now they're in the pit. They're trying to buy some time. Nation's Cross coming through as well. XQW has to ult out of the way. But who is going to get the Drake? Someone should be going for it as Haichao kicks the kill. Down. And the Drake is going over to the side of LNG. Good save. Important for them to actually fight for that one instead of just watching it go down. But again, positioning. So important for them.
LNG have just again swung the fight back in their favor with a 3-for-1 in favor of the team that are not with the Baron. So now they'll be able to break open the base, probably get an inhibitor, and with 30 seconds on Savior, 30 seconds on XQW, they're not going to look for more. I think they might have been able to look for a little bit extra. They take the inhibitor and are happy with it. But once again, Miller here, the gold, it swings in the favor of LNG, and we're getting these team fights that are just a bit weird.
Honestly, I don't even know. I don't know. At this point, I don't know. I'm with the chat. I'm like, both teams are winning and both teams are losing at the same time. I'm not sure what's happening.
XQW takes some initiative here, but Zika's Zhonya's actually does a really good job at keeping him alive. This snapback would have killed him. But LNG are ready to focus the Yone. And you'd think that that's good, but Fish One overcommits into the pit and back out again, so he can't actually find this kill. And in the back half of this, he's not actually doing any damage to any meaningful targets. He gets slowed up by the Maokai and can't actually contribute to the teamfight in a meaningful way. This is a 4-item Kai'Sa for LNG. And despite all of that, LGD still lose. Savior falls, and once again, it's with Flash available, or maybe not with Flash available, but now he's got that Flash, he needs to be much more conscious of where he is. And I think that looking for Savior and how well Xayah can contribute to these team fights is going to be the massive part of why LGD either win or lose.
I also feel like that the moments when LNG actually put themselves in a position to move forward on the map, they profit a lot from these 3 void grabs they still have, right? So we just saw that siege that they did on the mid lane where they were able to pick up the inhib. So much impact coming through from the 3 void grabs as well, which of course only works when you're playing from ahead, and for a while there they have been holding back a little bit. They weren't able to hit these turrets. Now they're moving further forward on the map, and I gotta say, I think they are in a way better position to do this, to win this game, than LGD are at this point. I don't think the Xayah pick is working for them. It's just not quite aggressive enough. And it fell behind quite hard after the first 2 kills that Fish One was able to get in one of the early fights.
And I do want to keep track as well that this is a dive composition for LGD. Other than Savior, all 4 of these champions want to go forward. How well are they doing that in tandem? And I think that importantly as well, one of the things that's maybe been missing is Sasi in these team fights. If he's not landing that public execution, trying to get into the backline as an ambassador is going to be really difficult without that ulti for access. So making sure that you're keeping eyes on the Ambessa in these team fights and seeing whether or not that ulti connects is going to be a very important deal. Because the Ambessa at this stage, 3.5 items with Death Stance, more of Malmortius and an Eclipse, all of these items are defensive in some nature. Sasi has got so much frontline buying power where he can just absorb damage and try to be a part of the frontline for LGD to give space for Savior. And if that doesn't happen, that's when the problems start to arise. You can even see here feeding gold into the Ambessa, trying to get to that Guardian Angel in time for this Baron. Has got teleport, so any gold that the Ambessa can find is going to be much appreciated. And with 40 seconds on the Baron, a minute on the Dragon, whoever wins the fight around the Baron is likely going to be able to take the second one as a secondary prize. Doesn't look like Sasi's been able to find the gold just yet. He's pinging that he wants to go for the Krugs. If you can get that GA in time, maybe there's a world for LGD to try and take this fight. But it's going to be a very close run thing. If we look at the setup around the Baron, they've got enough vision there as Savior may be caught.
Stolen Nature's Grasp coming through. Savior has to go for the Featherstorm and the Flash as now the Exhaust is coming through. YCX is trying to buy some time, but Fish1 gets the kill in the end. OVO on the other side is trying to buy some space, and that should be game as they are now going for the backwards. And they're going gold, and the public execution won't hit. And underneath the turret, maybe they can trade something back, but the damage output on the side of LNG is just too big. It's just too good. Yes, you can go golden. Yes, you can go into your Zhonya's and GAs, but it does not matter as LNG are looking to pick up their first win in this series. And I gotta say, it was surprisingly good at times.
Yeah, LNG come away with game number 1 and really happy that they're able to punish the mistakes of LGD. Savior there getting caught out for a second time in these team fights where he gets hit by the Nature's Grasp. That then allows for the follow-up for all of that engage to come through, and then he ultis late, flashes late. The power of this Xayah is that you can just pull, your ulti when that Nature's Grasp is coming through. Yes, it feels a little bit rough, but you've trade ults with the Maokai. It's not the worst thing in the world. Instead, you get caught by it and lose the game. And then you think, oh, well, I should have ulted earlier, but it's already too late at that point. Sasa, once again, not quite timing his public execution well to land as they're coming out of stasis. All of these small things, the little bits of, mechanical misplays from LGD, costing them big time.
Yeah, and I feel like LGD actually, they did have great tools, right? They did have the Vombo combo potential. If you actually hit the public execution, the Magnet Storm, Yone going in with the ult as well. That's such nice backline dive that you have on paper, but they just could not make it stick. So sad.
Yeah, it does feel bad to see that be how LGD lose, where, realistically, if they'd have been able to just use their hands a little bit better, those team fights would have been a lot closer. But for LNG, we're more than happy for them to just go, well, that's game number 1 in the books. That's our 3rd win of the split so far. They've only found 1 win against a team that wasn't LGD, so I think they'll be feeling pretty confident going into game number 2 and maybe expecting that they could just look for a series win here. Again, when LGD lose series, they lose them pretty quickly, and they typically do just get 2-0'd.
Definitely. I think it was not clean by all means, right? We did see that LNG were struggling. They did give over catches every now and then. I think their early game was a little wonky. Yeah. And then in the mid game, they got their footing more and more with every team fight that they played. It felt like they became more and more secure in what they were doing, and that ended up winning them the game as well. But there was always a moment for me where I felt like LGD can come back from this. It was never a safe bet, LNG's gonna win this.
Yeah, and I think honestly that does come down to, for me at least, it comes down to how that Xayah should be played and the power that the Xayah can have. And that actually, when you've got the wombo combo of Yone plus Maokai plus the Xayah feathers coming through all of that, that realistically that 5v5 team fight is actually very, very strong. And unfortunately, they just weren't quite able to execute on that. And I think that importantly for LNG, the fact that they were able to punish and that they were able to take this first game is that really big ticket win, and is important for their mental, and important to look at that early game and look at, actually, we did make these mistakes here, we made those mistakes there. We can see on the gold graph, 25 minutes in, we're ready to write this one off as an LGD victory and go to game number 2. But again, looking at the damage dealt to champions, I think the unsung hero here, again, Zika, for LNG, just constantly able to perform in team fights.
Yeah, 100%. I think it makes absolute sense that this is the player to watch on that team. It also makes sense that people are like, man, I wish he wasn't a team that could give him a bit of a better, starting point to begin with. But he's been definitely performing extremely well. With also, look at the kill participation. Come on. He was there at all times. But so was his jungler. So I think across the board, that's a decent stat to go with.
Yeah, and we'll get to see some of the highlights of this game as well, as we didn't really start fighting until pretty late on into this match. But if you want to keep your eyes on Zika just to see how he's doing damage this entire time, equalizes down across a few people here, and unfortunately this is the fight where it doesn't quite work out for LNG. But even still, the majority of this damage had been done by the Rumble that is coming through in these skirmishes. And I think that with LNG taking game number 1 here, as they move into this second game, they've no longer got Zika Rumble in the back pocket, and I think that the fact that they lose Kai'Sa as well, just from having played it in this first game, diving a little bit deeper into those champion pools is going to need to obviously happen, but maybe put LNG a little bit at a disadvantage, let's say, going into the rest of this series. As I think that Zika Rumble has been so good this entire season, and the fact that he doesn't get that for the future games is going to be something to keep track of, and maybe puts them at a disadvantage.
So you would say that champion pool might also be an issue, or is it really just the execution of the champions that will possibly still be available?
Yeah, I think that we just know Zika Rumble to be way too good, and the output that he can have in a game on any champion is always going to be immense. But I think that his output on a Rumble is just crazy. Like, it is game warping, as we saw in this fight, and as we see in so many of the fights, that Zika Rumble does just a little bit too much more than Zika on the majority of other champions. Because Rumble's a really strong champion at the minute. Maybe if he gets his hands on Gwen, then we can see something like that, but that champion's probably just getting banned. Yeah,
definitely. So the question therefore is that also your player of the game? Would you say it's gotta be Zika, or was it someone else that also gave you the feeling of, oh, that person definitely was a fight decider, even if it was like cleaning up or setting up, like, or is it Zika for you? What's your feeling on that one?
If Haichao hadn't have had so many instances where he actually got picked and caught, I think there's a couple of team fights where he comes up huge. I think, honestly, for a first-time performance on the LPL stage, OVO didn't have too many shaky moments and looked pretty impressive throughout, so I wouldn't be against that. But I do think that just for the consistency through team fights, Zika probably will just nail this, and he was always pretty solid in the laning phase and will probably just take the MVP.
Yeah, definitely. I love that, the chat is pointing out the Ambassa again. I know, guys, okay? I was just as frustrated. Yeah. But it's not fair to point it out every time. It is a skill shot, okay? It is a skill shot. I want to see you guys hit that ult all the time. Doesn't work like that.
Yes,
no.
Probably
it's a roughie.
One of the more difficult skill shots to land. Varus ulti is the one that comes to mind as ones that people frequently say goes wide. The amount of times we'll miss that because it's so slow. But yeah, Ambessa as well with the wind up. You can get a little bit dodged out on. Either way, Sasi not quite having the performance that we would expect from LGD in game number 1.
Yeah, definitely a little bit rough, as we are now hopefully getting to see the player of a game. It's the MVP, it's Zika. I mean, not a big surprise, I gotta say. For me, definitely also the standout player. With the kill participation we've mentioned already, it just goes to show that whenever he joins the fight, things can turn around. He didn't end up picking most of the kills for himself, but he did end up setting most of it up. So I'm happy with that decision, right?
Yeah, a very solid pickup for our MVP for game number 1, so not at all sad about that. And I think that with Zika, like I said, going into a good game number 1 performance, we need to carry this momentum through into game number 2.
Yeah, definitely. Before we go to a short break, we have a little message for you guys. So if you would like to support the LPL English, please consider becoming a Coffee member, because Coffee is the best way to support the LPL English projects, since the vast majority of our contributions will go directly to the show. So a lot of the initial payments go into upgrading the broadcast, but a huge bulk of it also pays on-air talent and content creators. So please subscribe to our Coffee, the link is in the chat, to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews. So definitely make sure to check that one out. We will now